So I think you mentioned that there will be some perhaps incoming repatriation flights and people coming back. So just give me an idea of the type of operations you're going to be doing this evening.
This afternoon we will prioritize incoming flights that have been stranded in Europe so we can get as many passengers into the country as we possibly can. After that, a few flights will be taking off during the evening, and that is about it.
Were those flights taking off likely to be, I know this is an airline question, but just so I understand, are they likely to be people who were due to fly that evening or people who've been delayed?
That will be flights due to fly this evening.
So what's happened here is that people who were due to fly during the day have lost their opportunity to fly, but people who this evening were due to fly probably won't be delayed too much. Is that right?
We talk about very few aircraft tonight, so I don't think that is a major issue. That is a few flights to make sure that we have operations in place for tomorrow morning.
For tomorrow, again, what's the picture going to be and who can expect to be flying?
Tomorrow morning, we expect to be back in full operation, so 100% operation as a normal day.
So people who are booked for tomorrow morning can expect to fly normally, and what should they do?
They should come to the airport as they normally would. There's no reason to come earlier. They should be coming to the airport as they were planning to do otherwise.
How would you sum up what's happened today, just in terms of the operation of this airport?
Yeah. First of all, what I'd like to do is to apologize to the many people who have had their travel affected during the day today. We are very sorry about all the inconvenience. I also like to thank the many people who have been part of bringing the airport back into operation. That is fire services, authorities, our airlines, handlers, and our own colleagues who've done an enormous work to get back into operation. What happened around midnight last night was obviously that we lost a major part of our power supply, and I like to stress that this has been an incident of major severity. It's not a small fire. We have lost power equal to that of a mid-sized city. And our backup systems have been working as they should, but they are not sized to run the entire airport.
I'll come back to that in a second, but I wanted to ask, I can't remember in a long history of covering this airport a time like this, a day like this. How would you put what's happened today in context?
This is unprecedented. It's never happened before, and that's why I'm saying it has been a major incident. Of course, everybody has been shocked, but all our procedures have been working the way they should. I hope people appreciate that we do not close down the airport unless we have severe safety concerns. That's why we do it, and that's what has happened today. We have been working tirelessly to get the operation back into running, and that's what's now happening.
So let's look at the power failure. What were you told, and when were you told what had happened?
Very early during the night, obviously, as soon as we realized the magnitude of this. And then all our procedures went into force, and we've been working ever since. First to reallocate our power supply. That means closing down all our systems and then restarting all these systems in a safe way, which takes a long time.
So when did you decide to close the airport, and how difficult a decision was that?
That was a very difficult decision, and we took that quite early when we could see that we could not safely operate the airport, and that is our concern number one, is the safety of our passengers and our colleagues. When we realized that that is not possible with that major power loss that we have to close the airport.
Because I suppose that's the key question, isn't it? A single power failure has closed down a major airport on which this country's economy depends, and you knew straight away you had to do it. That does suggest that this is a bit of a weak point.
Well, you can say that, but of course, contingencies of certain sizes, we cannot guard ourselves against 100%. And this is one of them. This has been a major incident. I mean, short of anybody getting hurt, this is as big as it gets for our airport. And we are actually coming back quite fast, I would say, when you consider the amount of systems that we have to shut down, then bring back up and make sure that they're safe. It's fueling systems, it's bridges, it's escalators, elevators. All of these systems have to be brought back up, tested to make sure they're safe and put into operation.
And a lot of people are asking another question, which is about backup supplies. What backup supplies were there, and why were they not capable of keeping the airport open?
Well, there are backup supplies. We have 3 of these substations. Each of them has a backup transformer. The backup transformer in this case also went. And then we have to restructure the supply. So we're not out of power, but we have to restructure our power supply. To do that, we have to close down systems. That is safety procedures. We cannot go around that. When we do that, and we did that during night, we got our power back in the morning, we then start to safely restart the airport. That is a major operation. We're talking thousands of systems that have to be restarted and tested before we can safely open the airport. And that just takes time.
And just help me understand what you mean by restructure the supply. So you're talking about switching the supply to different places?
Yes, when you have 3 incoming inlets, as we have, of major size as these 3 are, when one goes down and the backup as well goes down, we have to make sure that the entire airport gets supply, and for that we need to sort of switch some wires, if you like. That happens via computers, but nonetheless, and that takes some time, and it requires, as I said, closing down systems and then restarting those systems.
So I think you said you'd lost the main supply and the backup supply. Were they in the same place?
Well, that's for this particular substation. We have 3 of those, so 2 of them were not lost, but each of them have the backup supply. And yes, the backup transformer for this supply was also lost.
But that does suggest that the 2 other power stations weren't able to keep the airport open.
They can actually, but that requires restructuring of the power supply, and that requires taking systems down. So yes, we can run on the 2.
So what lessons are you learning from this, and what changes will you make?
That is something we'll look back on when we are through today's operation. But of course, we'll look at anything we can learn from this. But I should say, our backup systems have worked the way they should. Our crisis management has worked the way it should. But this just takes time when we have an incident of this major severity.
And this is very good, very useful detail. I just want to understand. So when you say you lost, presumably you lost some of the power, so not enough to keep the airport open, but there was some power.
We lost a major part of our power, 1 out of 3 substations. 2 substations can run the airport, but we need to re-engineer the structure of the power supply for all the terminals, and that's what we were doing during the day. And then we have to restart all the systems, and that's what we've done, and we now see operation coming back.
The Prime Minister has said that he'll be asking questions of you about why this has happened and what can be done to prevent it. What will your answers be?
We will come back to that when we have a look back at this. But as I said, our procedures have worked the way they should. This takes time, and of course the Prime Minister should ask his questions, and we'll be happy to answer them.
And the Director General of IATA, the airline industry group, has said that it's not good enough, that they have been let down again, and he used the word, I think, again, by this airport. What would you say to airlines, your customers?
What I'm saying to the customers, of course, is that we are sorry for the incident. It was caused by what is outside factors. I think the statements are made without much detail of what's actually happening and the understanding of the severity of this incident.
And who, in the end, it's a complicated business, will pay for this?
Well, there are procedures in place for that, who pays for that, and those procedures will be followed, and that is airlines for passengers and so forth.
But as a business, do you anticipate this being a major liability for you?
That's not how the structure works, and we don't have liabilities in place for incidents like this.